allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Dr. McMullen.
Good evening. Thank you for attending tonight's Olathe Public Schools Board of Education meeting. Before we begin, we feel it is important that we review the importance of conducting a productive and orderly meeting. This meeting is designated for the board to work with the superintendent and staff to conduct the work as outlined in the agenda. Please understand that patrons attending the meeting do so solely in an observatory role. Out of respect for everyone in attendance, we request that audience members not speak, yell, or give applause during the meeting. This ensures the board, staff, and other attendees are able to listen and understand the business conducted. Anyone disrupting the meeting in any capacity will be asked to leave and may lose the opportunity to attend future meetings. Thank you again for attending, and we'll now proceed with the agenda.
Thank you, sir. Moving on to agenda item 2.01. Seek a motion.
Move to adopt the agenda as presented.
Second. We have a motion by Mrs. Steele and a second by Mr. Wycliffe.
Dr. Yurkovich.
Yes.
Mrs. Steele.
Yes.
Mr. Wycliffe.
Yes.
Mr. Boyd.
Yes.
Mr. Beveridge.
Yes.
Mr. Kuhn.
Yes.
Mr. Connell.
Yes.
All right, motion passes 7-0. Moving to 3.01.
Good evening. For tonight's recognitions, we have one very special guest. At this time, we'd like to invite Prairie Trail Middle School's very own Taylor Bussinger up to the front, along with his principal, Dr. Jenna Jones, and Assistant Superintendent for Middle Schools, Dr. Rochelle Waters. Taylor, who teaches 8th grade social studies at Prairie Trail, was named the 2024 Kansas Teacher of the Year. He was one of 124 educators across the state nominated for the prestigious award, with 8 finalists being chosen at the state level. Taylor is now in the running for the National Teacher of the Year. Superintendent Dr. Brent Yeager said, Taylor, or as his colleagues and students call him, Mr. Bus, represents everything we want in a teacher and role model for our students. He teaches his academic content with excellence to ensure his students succeed, while also taking the time to care for his students' well-being so they feel valued and heard in his classroom. Taylor received a Bachelor of Science degree in education with an emphasis on social studies and his master's in curriculum and instruction from the University of Kansas. He has taught at Prairie Trail for 9 years. He currently serves as the head boys basketball coach, head cross-country coach, a member of the Positive Behavioral Interventions and Supports team, and he is the co-founder and sponsor of the Diversity Club. Some of his students even came here tonight to not only facilitate the pledge for us, but to support one of their favorite teachers. His principal, Dr. Jones, said, "We are so grateful to have Mr. Buss on our team at PRT. He is so deserving of this award. He works tirelessly every day to make a lasting impact on his students' lives through positive relationships, engaging instruction, and making sure all of their voices are heard. He's a fantastic teammate, humble, and always does what is best for kids." As the Kansas Teacher of the Year, Taylor will travel around the state to advocate for education and provide professional development for his fellow teachers. And Kansas Commissioner of Education, Dr. Randy Watson, who will present later this evening, said, "As a former history teacher, it is truly an honor to announce Taylor as the Kansas Teacher of the Year. He brings history alive for his students at Prairie Trail and continuously inspires curiosity. I want to wish Taylor and the members of the 2024 K-Toy team success as they travel across the state." Congratulations, Taylor, on this amazing achievement. We're so proud of you. So you guys first, and then family. I know your wife and your son are here, and then students too, if you kind of want to make your way up. So Nick, go ahead and take this one. Awesome. One more. Yeah, you may want to crouch. And whoever would like to take pictures, please come on up and take pictures of them. We have a few more. So, Taylor, would you like to say a few words?
In front of my students. I wish I had this memorized. I apologize for not. When I think back over my 10 years in Olathe and at Prairie Trail, I realize none of this is possible without Dr. Yurkovich, actually, who took a chance on me way back in 2014. There I was, a recent graduate, an imposter, trying to appear as that I had it all together. Also happened to be dating the math teacher at Prairie Trail. Crazy how that works out. Since then, this district and this place has become where Jill and I have invested our life's career. We love this place. The educators, the young people, the community. Prairie Trail has and always will be a huge part of my life. Simply put, I love my job because it's allowed me to grow professionally and personally. I want to thank all the administrators that have invested in me and walked alongside me and supported my growth. From Dr. Yurkovich to JJ Leibel to Rick Sola to Dr. Jenna Jones. And all the support from Jennifer Stosko, Brian Barrickman, Carrie Snyder, and Brandon Mellon. I'm not the person or teacher I am without you all. To my coworkers at Prairie Trail, past and present, it's the standards and quality of education that you ignite every day that energize me and that makes anybody who steps in Prairie Trail know that it's a special place. I want to thank the parents and the school district community for supporting me and walking alongside me that make Olathe the best place to work and go to school. To be blunt, I don't know who I am without being an educator. This profession has allowed me to figure out who I am. It's fostered a journey and a path for me to become a better person. And I think every educator strives for this. We want to be the best for our young people. My job is and always will be about the young people, their education, their voice in that education, their perspective, their intellect, their curiosity, and their inspiration. When we inspire young people to be curious enough to want to know more about who they are and what they bring to this world, we all win. True and lasting education is not something that we can ever finish. It takes deep in the place of the hearts of our young people. So lastly, and most importantly, I want to thank my past and present students for learning history alongside me, for believing in me and inspiring me. Thank you.
We have one more surprise. Dr. Yeager is going to put his photo up on the wall.
All right, moving on to information and presentations 4.01. Board, it is my honor, my privilege, and my pleasure to welcome the Kansas State Commissioner of Education, Dr. Randy Watson, for a presentation.
Good evening, Mr. President,
Good evening.
Board. I am just here to be the new chairperson of the Taylor Fan Club. Wondering if anyone wanted to sign up, right? Yeah, the tour's just started for Taylor, and he's going to be all across the state spreading his wisdom, helping out soon-to-be teachers in our colleges and universities, spending time with high school students and past his own classroom. So we're just so excited for his journey, and congratulations to everyone here in Olathe. Well deserved. And as so true in Kansas, so we've had a chance to get to know each other a little bit, and we'll get to know each other a lot better over the next year. But he comes up and, we're putting together people that he knows well, that I know well, and before, the night's out, we'll be related. A lot of McPherson connections, a lot of my own family connections that we have. I send you greetings from the Kansas State Board of Education, who, like you, are elected body and set to serve the children of our state like you serve the children here in Olathe. What I'd like to go over with you today is some state data relative to Olathe data and talk about some of the challenges that all of you are hitting head on and some of the things that we see in the future that I think will be instructive, and then answer any questions you have. So we have this vision that we started in 2015-16 that was revalidated by our board in 2021 and just literally in the last 12 months, that we have some high metrics for our students, many of whom you saw tonight, so that they can be successful. Now, what I want to tell you is, and you get drug into this like I do. Everyone wants this simple definition of success. And it's multifaceted, and it's multi-layered, and it's not a simple answer. But we know a lot about what makes that up. But what I can tell you is, even with the young people that led the pledge tonight, for each of those children, it's a little different. That path is a little different. And so what we're trying to do is develop a system, as you are, that enhances the opportunities that all of the students, almost 30,000 students here in Olathe will have as they go forward. So when we think about this work, we say, all right, then what are the measurements that we can look at that would help us in answering the question, are we headed toward helping each child be successful? So I'll share with you a couple of things and then talk about what makes up those couple of things. High school graduation rates. We have set a goal of 95%, and the reason is no child should not graduate high school in 2023. So it really should be 100%. We know that's probably not attainable. No state has set that bar that high. No state. So what we see here over the last several years is we've increased that percent to just under 90% at 3.2 percentage points. But like what you see here in Olathe and the work that all of you are doing here in Olathe, that work is being done primarily not with the students who were easiest to graduate. We've done that work. We've done that work. It's now with the students that come to school whose English is not their first language. English language learners, that growth has been 6.7 percentage points. It's instructive for, I think, people in the audience to understand when we say students that come to school who do not speak English as their native language, once they can do that adequately enough to pass an assessment called the KELPA, they exit the program. They're no longer in that category. So these are kids who do not speak English. And that's the rate of their graduation rate. Free reduced lunch is how we rate poverty or look at poverty. That percent's grown 4.4 percentage points, and students with disabilities has grown 5.6 percentage points. All of those subgroups are growing faster than the overall average, which is what you want to see because we call that narrowing the gap. We also see that in Olathe. As you see, you are a microcosm, a big microcosm of the state of Kansas, and the demographics are changing in the state of Kansas. The percent of Caucasian kids is dropping, percent of African American kids is slightly decreasing. The increase in multiracial students and Hispanic Latino students are increasing. And so when we see things like this, that's the effort that all of you are putting forth to note that that work is paying off. But there's a second part to that success. I graduate high school with skills. I graduate because the graduation high school in 2023 is just the beginning. It's just the beginning. So let's take a look at then some of the skill set that we see across the state. Here's the 5-year average of what we call the post-secondary effective rate. It's a pretty simple metric, but we're the only state to really be doing this. We just take a look 2 years after high school. So on July 1, 2023, we looked back to the class of 21. If that makes sense. And we asked, did you graduate high school? And did you go on to earn something beyond high school, or are you still in school pursuing it? And if the answer is yes, then you are on the effective rate, all right? Now, if you go to Johnson County Community College, if you go to KU, and you're now a sophomore, junior in standing, or you've already graduated with an associate degree, or you have a welding certificate already, and you're in the workforce, you have to have some skill, or you wouldn't make it, right? You have to have some skill. This increase is increased by 7 percentage points over the last 7 years, the same number of years we've tracked graduation. I want you to think back. How much did graduation go up? 3.2 percentage points. How much did this go up? 7. More students going on to post-secondary than in the history of our state. And that's true here also. So when we say post-secondary, it doesn't mean every student goes to a 4-year college. They can earn certificate, associate degrees, baccalaureate, master's, PhDs, professional's degrees. That rate is up. And then let's look at students in high school. The number of students taking dual credit classes peaked at an all-time high last year. Just under 36,000 students took at least one credit in higher education. Just look at the growth since 2017 and the number of students statewide. Then look at the number of credit hours they've earned since 2017, that increase. We're now just under 307,000 credit hours earned. So let me get this right. So I can pass college algebra, I can pass English Comp 1, I can pass Intro to Biology, I can graduate high school. I must have some skills. Must have some skills. So the other thing we want to look at is, what about those students that struggle when they get to post-secondary? We call that remedial courses. And the most common is college algebra. We can argue about that. Taylor probably and I want to talk, since we're history majors, about why did we have to take college algebra. It was set up for engineers, but it's the gateway math course. Community college in 2010, almost 40% of students arriving at a community college had to take a remedial course or more. That's pretty high. In the latest data from Kansas Board of Regents, that number had dropped to 27.4. That's the latest data they have is 2021. If you go to State University, that number was 15% in 2020. It's now less than 9%. We've dropped the remedial rate. More kids are taking dual credit. More courses are being taken. Graduation rate's the highest in the history of our state. All the students with disabilities who are in poverty or who do not speak English have never been higher than we've seen before. That's a reality. We like that. So I'm here tonight to not just tell you all the good news, to tell you what the challenges are laying ahead of all of us as a state, and certainly here in Olathe as we look forward. So how do you get then to help each student become successful? Well, I like to think there are 3 big categories. They need to come to school. We call it chronic absenteeism. And we know this. Students who are chronically absent. By the way, these are students that miss more than 10% of the days of school, non-school related. So if you go to school 170 days a year, these are students that miss 17 days or greater a year, not because they're out for the basketball game or the FFA contest. Students are chronically absent in preschool, kindergarten, and first grade. We're just starting school, are much less likely to read at grade level by third grade. I'm going to share some data, but if you don't get there by third grade, you rarely get caught up. This is really critical. And just to show you across the state, pre-COVID, we averaged around 13 to 14% of our students chronically absent. We want to drive that number, as you want to, below 10%. So as you look and examine your own data, think about get it below 10%. Would we love it zero? Yes, we want to, but get it below 10%. Here's what happened when we hit COVID, and then what? And then teachers in the audience know exactly what happened the year after that. It got worse. 26% of our kids in 2022 were missing more than 10% of the days of school. Last year that dropped, but look, it's not nearly where it was. So I'm asking all of us, and I'm asking parents, we have to have kids in school. And I know, we're quick if we don't feel well. Maybe you ought to stay home and be safe, and we all want people safe. There's no doubt about that. But we need students in school. I also want to share with you what we know now about academic data. I'm going to share the data of Kansas students, 106,000 Kansas students in the classes of 2017, 2018, and 2019. You say, why do we look back? Because you know where those classes are today? They're well out of school. We're going to look at them when they were 10th grade, but those classes are they're gone. Nothing we do today will impact them. They're gone. And what I'm going to show you is state assessment data, which is one point of data, piece of information, and talk some about that, and show you the relationship to that, to graduation and whether they go on. So the two bars you're seeing are how those students scored in mathematics and language arts. The bluer bar is language arts, mathematics is in the orange, and then the percent of students that went on to graduate. So we score the state assessment level 1, 2, 3, and 4. I don't think there's been anything in my world debated more than the state assessment and the scores. So I'm here to set the record straight on what the state assessment. Like, people ask me all the time, what's grade level? The entire test is on grade level. We're measuring grade level. We don't measure below it, we don't measure above it, we measure the idea of how well can you do that work so that you can do what? Graduate and get on to post-secondary. That's the measurement. That's the measurement, and that's what we're trying to do. What we know is that level 2 students graduated in our state, 106,000 kids that we looked at, 10% higher than kids in level 1. That's significant, right? Just getting to high school. You see that number doesn't grow all that much from 2 to 3 or 3 to 4. And then when we look at post-secondary, meaning the students going on past post-secondary, where do we see the biggest move? Well, again, if I'm at level 2, it's 25% different than those students that scored in level 1. And while that certainly goes up a great deal from 2 to 3 and 3 to 4, what we know is this: academics matter. Moving students out of level 1 is critically important. Critically important. Do we want to move them towards 3 and 4? Absolutely. Critically important for their future opportunities. Too many students enter high school in our state today with limited academic opportunities after high school because of where they were all the way back in 3rd grade. And so as you wrestle with your own data and you talk about it, that's the challenge. How do we reduce that, and how do we do it well? This past year, I can tell you that we reduced in language arts and mathematics level 1 dramatically. We increased levels 3 and 4 dramatically. You saw the same thing in Olathe. I've looked at your data. Congratulations, you've done the same thing. Are there too many kids in level 1? Yes. Are we decreasing it? Yes. Both are true. That's why when we talk about each child, every time I look at that, I'm thinking of the 500 1,000 kids in the state of Kansas, and you're thinking about the 29,000 and some kids that you have in Olathe, because each of those students matter. Now, I want you to look at level one. All right, if academics were the only thing that mattered, how in the world, in a level one, limited, right, did they graduate high school, and did they go on? Because about 30% of those kids went on to earn something beyond high school. How did that happen? Let's all look at level four. These are kids that score equivalent to over 30 on the ACT test, for those of you that know that. It's a high, high level. Why wouldn't 100% of those kids go on? Why only 81, 82% of those kids go on? Because all of you know, as an adult, what makes up success? Your knowledge, your skill, and some other skills. We call them the Kansas Can competency. And it's the magic of those skills coming together with really good hard academic skills that make up that success. In big buckets, I come to school, I have academic skills, I have these skills, and I mesh them together and I apply them every day and do really, really well in that work. And so when we think of this work then as to, well, then what can we do going forward? As I said, it's pretty simple. We have to lower chronic absenteeism immediately. So we're looking at everything we can do to help get students to school and keep them there. We want to move students academically out of level one. You're doing remarkable work. We want to raise the level of academic rigor and have higher expectations for all students. I'll give you a snapshot of that in a second. We want to help students develop Kansas Can competency skills in conjunction with the academic skills. I had the honor this afternoon, and I know a lot of you have this too. When you're the commissioner, you get to wander into any school in the state. People don't like that a lot, I found out, but I get to do that. And so today I got to spend some time in Olathe, just down the street at Central Elementary School with a fantastic staff. I want to tell you about high expectations. I saw a special education class where we had some students that were being pushed out into the regular classroom and then pulled in for various times of the day. I happened to be in there when about 3, I think, of the 7 caseload. And I saw a teacher academically challenging those kids at such a high level, but an appropriate level, and working with them where they were today and expecting where they're going to be tomorrow to be a lot better. I then went to every single classroom in that building to spend 15 minutes or so in every single classroom. This was between 1 o'clock in the afternoon and 3:30 in the afternoon. Now, what were you doing? You know what? Most people in the afternoon like, well, it's got to be close to quitting time, and I need a break. I saw every teacher engaged, every student engaged, just working so hard in what? Mathematics and social studies and reading and language arts, just working so hard and having a great time doing it. And I want you to know that, because as you look at that's happening because of wonderful teachers and wonderful principals and staff that are just so dedicated. So I can't tell you how happy I am that you're on the right track. Boards of education don't get much credit. I'm going to guess last week in your inbox of email and voicemail, the number of emails and voicemails that were left for you to say, hey, great job. I can't believe what a wonderful job you've done the past month. You just don't get those very often. And while we have a lot of work to do, we're not, I grew up on the Oklahoma-Kansas border in Coffeyville. We're close to the Missouri border, and I always kid, it's not about beating Oklahoma or Missouri. And I often joke my counterparts and those that, well, that's easy, okay? and Margie in Missouri is a great friend of mine, so we joke about that. We're here to do it because our kids and our families deserve that best, right? They deserve all those opportunities. With that, Mr. President, I'd stand for any questions. I know you have a full agenda, and I appreciate the work that all of you do.
Thank you, sir. Board, any questions?
I'd like to ask a question.
Mr. Beveridge.
I'm wondering if you might take a minute or two to kind of explain the four levels and what they mean and the changes that were made. And I believe there's something federally that, levels have to be considered I think you know where I'm going on that.
Yes, sir. So I'm going to get in the weeds a little bit, and I apologize, but when you design a test for federal accountability and state accountability, psychometric people have to control the test and the test environment. So the first thing, when I became commissioner, Ed Next and Nate, who does the national testing, had just done a survey and given us a D- in the rigor of our standard. Said they're not very tough. Anyone can do really well on these things. And so we brought teachers in. This is all teacher driven in Kansas, and said, design the standards so that when we know when kids are doing well, that will lead them to future success in graduation and post-secondary. In 2017, by the time we got that work done, NAEP said, you have the highest standards and the highest cut scores in the country. You've inverted that. You have an A. So that was step one. That's step one. So now, what does this test mean? Well, level one means you have a limited ability to do academic work going forward toward that post-secondary. Level two is that you have a basic understanding of what it takes to go on to graduation and post-secondary. And then levels 3 and 4 are you have an excellent ability to go do that work. I think too often we want to look at a score and say, well, Randy's good or not good, and it's not that simple. It's not that simple. You have to look at multiple things. So we have high standards, high expectations. Why? So that when students go to KU, they're going to do great. When they go to Washburn Technical School, they're going to do great in HVAC. And they go to the military, they're going to do great. That they have all those options open to them. And our assessment's trying to show that. So move students out of level one because that is the limiting factor. And even there, that's pretty high, but it is limiting compared to levels 2, 3. Is that helpful, sir?
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks for being here.
Board, any other questions of Dr. Watson? Well, sir, thank you for being here. I'm glad you enjoyed your time in Olathe.
I did. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next presentation is coming from Megan Bricks. She's going to give us a presentation on American Education Week.
Hello, Board of Education. Thank you so much for allowing us to talk to you and kind of explain American Education Week. American Education Week will be celebrated this year from November 13th through the 17th. When we're discussing American Education Week, to me, it's really important that we think back to what the Olathe Unified School District was in the past and where it currently is, so that we can understand how we play a vital role in our community. The Olathe School District was formed by the consolidation of 5 smaller districts, including Countryside, Meadow Lane, Mount Zion, Olathe, and Pleasant View, with schools from the 1860s. On the left of the screen, you'll see a picture of Washington School from 1923, compared to, on the right, Canyon Creek Elementary School, which opened its doors as 36th Elementary School in 2019. Within both those buildings, both then and now, educators had to work extremely hard to meet the needs of their students using the resources that they had available to them. When we think in secondary, on the left you'll see the original Olathe High School, whose doors were opened from 1958 through 1981. On the right, you'll see Olathe West High School, which opens its doors as the 5th high school in the school district in 2017. Throughout the history of the Olathe Public Schools, the community, the families, and the schools' partnerships have created a school district that is exceptional within the state of Kansas, as well as across the country. What I want to share with you tonight is the history of American Education Week. It was first celebrated from December 4th through the 10th in the year 1921. The creation of American Education Week stemmed from alarming data showing that 25% of the country's World War I draftees were illiterate. So a meeting was then held in the year 1919 by the American Legion, as well as representatives of the NEA, to seek ways to generate public support for education. The NEA asked for the week to be observed annually in communities throughout the country for the purpose of informing the public of the accomplishments as well as the needs of public schools, and to secure the cooperation and support of the public in helping meet those needs for our students. As schools and classrooms across the country begin to celebrate American Education Week, they have many opportunities to honor the substitute educators, the education support professionals, the educators, and the families that all partner in creating a great public education experience for all students. This year, Monday, November 13th, is the kickoff day to help familiarize the school community with the history of American Education Week. Tuesday, November 14th, is Family Day, where schools are invited to welcome family members into the classrooms and into our school buildings to experience a typical school day for their child. Wednesday, November 15th, is Education Support Professionals Day, where schools are invited to honor the contributions of all of our amazing school support staff. Thursday, November 16th, is Educator for a Day, where schools are invited to welcome community leaders to experience the day as an educator alongside those schools' educators. To end the week, Friday, November 17th, is Substitute Educators Day, just as important as any other educator, where schools will show their appreciation of their school substitute employees. The staff in our community schools are invaluable to the success of our students and must be recognized as such. Specific resources for how to celebrate each day are available at NEA.org. In this month of gratitude, please join me in celebrating how grateful we are for our staff in the Olathe Public Schools. We want to encourage the Olathe community to join us this year in celebrating American Education Week for the hard work that each of our educators do each day to support all of the students here in Olathe. We want to thank our community for their continued support of public education in Olathe. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, moving to 4.03, you start an end-time presentation. Dr. McMullen.
Well, good evening, and thanks for the opportunity to give an update and ultimately a recommendation to the board on an adjustment to our start and end time for next school year. And I apologize in advance, there's a lot of information to cover, and so this PowerPoint's got a few slides to it. But I think it's important to look at the why, the work we did last school year, the work we've done this year, review some survey data that was really important for us, and then ultimately review a recommended schedule. So that's the plan tonight. So our transportation challenges and how did we get here? And if we go back to 22-23 school year, it's important to see the services that we were providing at that point in time, and I'll touch on the staffing and how that relates to this data as well. But general education riders, we had over 6,600 students that were riding a bus every day. 2,100 were over 2.5 miles, and those are students that you're required by statute to transport. And then we had almost 3,600 students daily riding as pay ride students. Of those 3,600, over half qualified for free and reduced lunch. And then we had almost 800 21st Century Academy students and over 100 ELL students. Then on the special services side, we had another over 780. 351 of those were K-21, KSD in Lake Mary, 219 early childhood SPED services, 127 Head Start, and 86 Jump Start. So it's just important to frame the volume of students that we were transporting on a daily basis. An example of routing and what that looks like, and I thought it was important to share the vast volume of what a routing system looks like for just one school. So this is Olathe Northwest from 22-23. You'll see the school, if you can see the PowerPoint, I'm circling where the school is. Their attendance area is essentially this area right here. And you can see that they had 14 routes, which means 14 different buses serviced Olathe Northwest, and you can see we were picking up students from every corner of the district. Had 297 stops, over 600 students transported on a daily basis. One other example is Olathe North High School. And again, you'll see the school right here, right in the middle of this map. Their attendance area is essentially in here. And you'll see they had 15 routes, 310 stops, and over 700 students. And I'll put that into perspective for you. Olathe North was our largest high school with over 2,000 students. So you're talking a third of the students at Olathe North High School were utilizing transportation services in 22-23. Assisted transportation is one of our other transportation providers, and they've done a lot of work for us. In 22-23, lots of day shuttles, over 600 per day. They helped out on some special services, home to school routes, our homeless students who qualified for McKinney-Vento services, as well as some foster home. Additional support, so as the bus driver shortage really started to impact us, Assisted really stepped up and took over essentially some bus routes with their vans and did some gen ed home to school, some SPED home to school, ELL, and even did some sports shuttles as well. So the challenge is, as we were trying to accomplish all of that, in addition to sports shuttles, in addition to field trips, which I'll cover later, is in our current bell schedule system, our two-tier system, you know, our needs required 182 routes. And as we go through this, just to, you know, look at equating a route to a driver or a route to a bus. We had 155 drivers, so every day, if everyone showed up to work that day, we started the day down 27 drivers. DS made up for that at times through a variety of strategies, including having upwards of 85% of their office and support staff driving buses, to drivers driving multiple routes, to some very excessive delays in service. And here's some of the realities we were dealing with in the 22-23 school year, which really prompted this study. You know, rolling blackouts for pay ride students, so families who had paid for pay ride, came into the school year expecting it. We had to put them on rolling blackouts, which meant that for family A, every Wednesday, you would not have bus services. So you're gonna have to find other means to get to and from school. And again, remember, of those 3,600 students who this was impacting, over 50% of those children live in poverty. We had middle school and high school students combined on the same bus route. Certainly that presents some challenges. We had one driver serving more than one bus route for the same school. So for example, at Olathe Northwest, driver would run a route, get the kids to school, and then go run a second route in the next neighborhood over and get kids to school right at the start time. Some other pieces there, we were averaging 6 gen ed and 5 sped routes that were late every day. So an example there is Pioneer Trail knew that bus 47, I'm making up the bus number, but trust me, you know, was going to be 25 minutes late every day, picking kids up after school every day. So we're dealing with all those challenges. Our buses were packed. We were requiring up to 3 kids per seat, pushing 65 to 75 students per bus. Didn't have availability for out-of-town trips. We had many kids on a wait list. And then on all of our activity trips, students were having to leave school so early to leave. A prime example I've used many times is one of our high school soccer teams goes to Lawrence for a 5 o'clock game. They're leaving school at 1 to 1:30, getting to Lawrence around 2:15 for a 5 o'clock game, because that bus has to get back to be able to serve students releasing from school. So those are a lot of the challenges we had. In terms of why we even ventured into looking at a 3-tier system, it certainly provides a great route efficiency. As you look across the country, most, and when I say most, 90% plus districts our size or larger are already on a 3-tier system. The reason they have been is because it's just a much more efficient model. You'll see it's definitely reduces the number of drivers you need, allows you to provide service for all riders, eliminates combining middle school and high school students on the same bus, lowers capacity, shorter ride times, and certainly allows for growth down the road. There's also a cost reduction side to this, and that's certainly not what's pushing this by any means. But there is that cost reduction avoidance each year that bus drivers can serve 2 and 3 levels of students versus 1 or 2 at the most. Certainly reduces the number of buses you need, fuel costs, miles, reduces the need and the reliance on that third-party vendor assisted transportation to pick up so many of the things that we would hope our bus provider did. And certainly everything's going up, as everyone knows, from fuel to wages to et cetera. So as we look at our current bell schedule, we are on what we would call a 2-tier system. And even though middle school and high school start 10 minutes apart and dismiss 10 minutes apart, they're essentially in the same tier, because a tier means, the driver can only drive one or the other, both in the morning and the afternoon. They wouldn't be able to run a high school and a middle school route. So we've been living in the world of drivers having at most 2 tiers to drive, either high school elementary combo or a middle school elementary combo. So 3-tier example, and what that does, it basically allows some drivers to drive all 3 levels, another set of a group of drivers to serve 2, and then you'll have some that just do singles. And you think, well, why do you do that? How is that efficient? Well, those are drivers that might be driving really long high school routes in the AM and PM, and then they are turning around and then running athletic or activity shuttles as well for us. So last year, kind of a quick summary of the work that was done. We started this with a parent survey in December of 22, and that survey was frankly very generic. We were really just putting out a feeler to the community to say, hey, we've really got an issue. We're looking for a fix. Where are you in terms of helping us address this? And the input from the parents was, yeah, we're ready to talk about this, but we need more information. And so we sent a staff survey in February and a parent survey in February that was much more detailed, talking about changing bell times and support levels for that to move to a 3-tier. We had a focus group of about 75 staff and parents last year that met over the course of 2 months very intensely, reviewed 20 different bell schedules. We were pulling them not only from all over the metro, but frankly all over the country, just looking at all different options for bell schedules. Ultimately, we were prepared to provide a recommendation to the board in April, and really the feedback that started coming in from our staff and our community was folks just weren't quite there yet. So we made the decision to hit the pause button, a decision I think that still was a good one, but unfortunately we had to put some interventions in place for this school year because we couldn't continue to operate minus 27 drivers every single day of the school year. An example of some of the start and end times from other districts through the metro, you'll see a wide range. You'll see multiple tiers. Shawnee Mission on the top left, excuse me, is an example of a 3-tier. Their order of sequence is high school, then elementary, then middle. But then you'll see others where middle school's in the middle, elementary's at the end, KCK and Park Hill, and others. And so that study group, again, vetted 20 plus schedules and did a lot of work there figuring out which levels work in each of the tiers. So thus the transportation interventions that we put in place, we had to eliminate pay ride services for our middle school and high school students. It was by far the most painful intervention. Reduced this by 25 routes. We were able to protect elementary school pay ride for this year. We had to switch our 21st Century and OATC and Mill Creek transportation to a pay ride option versus a free option. Another pain point was eliminating some safety variances. So students that lived closer to the school than we would provide service, but had some intersections that were concerned, or traffic counts or speed, we had to unfortunately eliminate some of those at the secondary level. And then we had to require a minimum number of students to even create a route. So if we only had 8 students sign up for a bus, we weren't able to offer it. And then for the first time in our district, we've had to put blackout days in on field trips, to where we've sent lists out to schools that, hey, on these dates this month, you can't schedule any field trips. We just don't have anyone available. So kind of the conclusions, again, lots of work done by that group. We looked at a recommendation in April, ultimately said we need more time, and then the direction was given to resume that bell schedule study this fall. So on to our current school year and the work that's taken place here. And I'll walk you through our data, our start and end time study group work, survey data, and then ultimately the bell schedule. So this fall, we commissioned a start and end time study group, much larger than the group last year. This group was about 175 members. We had 50, well, let me back up. We had 25 parents from each level. So at a minimum, 25 elementary, 25 middle, 25 high. Same on the staff side, so 25 teachers at each level. Had administrators, had classified staff, and district staff as well. So a really large group that really dug into a lot of data. We then sent a survey to all parents and staff in September. And the start and end time study group met again, and we broke out by level at that meeting, and really had the elementary group really dig into elementary options in A and B and what that looked like, pros and cons, challenges, solutions. Did that at all 3 levels. And then ultimately tonight we're here to share more data and a recommendation to the board. As a reminder to everyone, tonight is not an action item for the board. It's just a future action item. We'll request that the board take action at the December meeting. So again, the study group, I can't thank that group enough. I know we have some parents and other community members and staff here tonight that were on that group, but really did a very nice job of taking the personal aspect of a change like this out and trying to look at this from a bigger picture lens. And it's really hard to do, because the minute you start talking bell schedules, and when you have parents that have kids at both elementary and middle, or high school and elementary, it's really so personal in terms of what works best for your family. And some families, it works best to have elementary go in the middle of the day or the end of the day or the beginning of the day. And so really trying to look at it globally on what's best for our system as a whole was really the task of that group. So the data was really important for us. One piece that we did this year that we didn't last year was we got input from our students. And this was done at the secondary level, where our middle school principals and our high school principals met with students and walked them through the what and the why and where we are. Because we have some students that are well aware and are affected and are walking to school 2 miles right now. And we have other students that it doesn't impact them, because mom can drive them to and from school every day. So the administrators went through that, and then they ultimately gave a QR code for the students to scan and provide input. And so the middle school student input, and you'll see we had just over 400 students participate. We asked each principal to meet with at least 2 different classes. Some did more. But we asked them, and we put this just in general tiers of 30-minute blocks. So we used 7:30 to 8, 8 to 8:30, and 8:30 to 9. And asked our middle school students their preferred start time and then their preferred dismissal time. Being a former middle school principal for 10 years, I can tell you, I see the math doesn't quite add up on realizing if you start at one time, you can't get out like after 6 hours, you still have to go to school for 7 hours. So, but the good news is the students were pretty clear. They like those earlier start times, the first and second tier, if you will. And then we put together a hypothetical schedule on, hey, if this was your bell schedule, which one do you prefer? And you'll see 250 of the middle school kids preferred that first tier. another 150 almost on the second tier, and then just a few 30 on the third tier. The high school input was really interesting. And again, we're looking at over 275 students that took part in this from all 5 high schools. Same questions. Again, you'll see the high school data shows a strong emphasis on that first tier. And second preference on the second tier, and very little support for the third tier. And again, here's that mock schedule from the high school students. And you'll see almost 200 of them preferred that first tier, 73 on the second tier. So it's good to get that student voice and student input. Parent survey, incredible response. In fact, according to our communications department, historic response on this survey, almost 7,500 parent responses on our parent survey. And I'll walk you through that quickly. We break it down by level in terms of which level do your children attend. You know, I'm glad it's hot in here on the night I have the longest presentation in the history of the district. It's awesome.
Just for the record, since you stopped for a second, we are working on getting fans in the room. That's why people just got up and left, and then there are people on the roof working currently as well. So we are working on it.
Dr. Yeager, if you want me to get up and leave, let me know. But back to the parent survey, some general questions. Does your kid currently ride the bus? If we did, we're able to reinstate pay ride, would they? Got some data there, but nothing that was drastic. Then we just flat out asked the parents between option A and option B, which model are you most supportive of? Option A came out on top, but not by a large statistical amount, about 4% difference. You'll notice a 22% on the no preference, and that is either parents that maybe have just high school students at this point in time, and as you know, high school was the same time frame, that first tier on both options, or it could be a family that just the start times just don't impact them. They have the means to get their children to and from school, irregardless of what time school starts. So then we break it down by level, and this is where you really get some interesting data. Early childhood, preferred option B at 51%, 35% A. High school I thought was interesting. Option A came out at 43%, option B 21%. Again, the no preference was higher there at 36%. Middle school, overwhelmingly option A. Option B came in second there. And then elementary school, preferred option B at 51%, 38% at option A. So pretty good data there. Then our staff survey, and again, I don't know if this is the highest response we've ever had, but it's up there with almost 2,800 responses between our certified and classified staff. You'll see we had over 2,000 certified staff members take it and 700 classified. Asked which building you work in, and you'll see, understandably, the number of respondents differ by the level of building. So high school's here in the blue, middle school's in the gold, and then elementary and early childhood and support buildings are in the red. So again, same question, which schedule would you be most supportive of in the 24-25 school year? Option A came out on top, but it's 1%. So pretty well split with our staff there. Then when you break it down by level, you really see some disparity in the data. Early childhood came out fairly even, a recommendation for A, but certainly lots of support for B. Elementary on the bottom left, strong preference for option B at 74%. You go up to middle school, 90% preferred option A. And then high school almost came out perfectly to the Mercedes-Benz symbol somehow, or a peace symbol, whichever one you prefer, but pretty interesting data there between option A and no preference being almost the same. And then our support buildings, again, were pretty differentiated as well, with all of them being about a third. So our field trip data review, I think this is important data for our community to understand and our staff in the volume of trips we have. So these transportation changes are much larger than just reinstating pay ride services. This is getting all students to and from school, providing equity and access for all students to all programming, but also all the additional things we do on a daily basis in our K through 12 schools to to provide great enrichment opportunities for our kids. And you'll see this is 22-23 data, over 4,000 total district trips. And just looking at it by level, elementary had over 770 trips. Some of the more common destinations, Topeka Capitol, City Hall, Mahaffey, Ernie Miller, Coterie Theater, just great experiences for kids. You'll see that elementary represents 21% of all the field trips, including activities in the district. Middle school, 739 trips. Get into your math counts, K Club, Quest Olympics, Kauffman Center, you name it. At middle school, you'll see on the right-hand side, you got to add in almost 400 athletic trips. So that's all of our football teams, volleyball, basketball, track, et cetera. So that puts middle school at over 1,100 trips per year. And then at high school, and this frankly was data that was pretty compelling to me, in that we had over 1,200 field trip activities at the high school level. And so much of it is focused on college and career readiness and those opportunities for kids. And you'll see those examples there. The other kicker at the high school level is the vast array of activities and athletics that we offer. You'll see over 1,000 trips for students to get to and from soccer, volleyball, swimming, golf, tennis, you name it. So grand total of 2,200 at the high school level in terms of trips. So then we got into looking at option A and B. And really, as I mentioned earlier, in option A, high school and PLC are in the same time slot, that tier 1, 740 to 240. In option A, middle school and Heartland, we're in that second tier, 820 to 320, and then elementary school is in the third tier. But frankly, the difference between A and B is just the swapping of middle school and elementary between the two options. You'll see our current drivers required, number of triple, double, and single routes, and then our field trip availability, which obviously is an important data piece as well. So again, as I alluded to, option B has elementary in the second tier, and middle school in the third tier. And then one thing that the study group really wanted to dig into is what's the difference between the instructional day and the contract day for our staff, and what's that look like in both option A and option B. So you're able to see, and I want to start with just a side note here, the contractual day is negotiated by our bargaining unit. And so any change to our contract day, irregardless of what decision is made, any change to that contract day would have to go through the bargaining unit and be ratified by that group. So on the left-hand side, you'll see our current instructional day and the contract hours. So currently middle school, contract day is 7:30 to 3:30, as is high school, and you'll see elementary is 8 to 4. So in option A, where middle school goes in that second tier, 8:20 to 3:20, you'll see that fits within their contract day. Again, if this is the option that is chosen, then certainly the bargaining unit could look at keeping that same contract hour and or looking at a 7:20 to 3:20 or what have you. So high school, same thing, fits in the current contract day, but again, negotiable to look at an earlier start if they'd like. And then elementary school, you're looking at a minimum of a 10-minute shift. The currently contract day again is 8 to 4. If they're in that third tier, 8:55 to 3:55, you're looking at an adjustment needed, potentially a 8:10 to 4:10. Option B, instructional day, it's where you get a pretty significant change for middle level. It's a minimum 40-minute shift from their current contract day. They would have to move from a 7:30 to 3:30 to at a minimum of 8:10, 4:10. Again, high school could stay the same, and then elementary, if they move to the second tier, could stay in their current contract day as well. One piece that's important to note is that both option A and option B align the instructional minutes at all three levels, which is certainly something that has been negotiated for quite some time. So our recommended bell schedule that we're recommending for the board to consider and take action in December is option A. That has high school in the first tier, middle school and Heartland in the second tier, and then elementary school and Harmony in the third tier. And I'm going to dig into that a little bit more in terms of the rationale. So when we look at change to the system, obviously change is hard and it affects everyone. Anytime you look at something like this, like a bell schedule, frankly, I've used the example many times of going back to 2010 when the district moved to a 6-8 middle school model and a 9-12 high school model from our former K6, 7-9 junior high, 10-12 high school. At the time, it was very, very controversial, and there was a lot of work done to get our system to see why we needed to make that change and all the benefits of it. And from my perspective, I think it would be really tough to go back now to that old system. I think people love our K5, 6-8, 9-12 model. So again, at the high school level, in option A, currently has no change to their contract day. Doesn't have to be. Again, that's negotiable from the bargaining unit. Middle level, again, same thing. We could be looking at no change to the contract day. And then at the elementary school level, again, their current contract day is 8 to 4. We could look at an 8:10 to 4:10 contract day, which would be a 10-minute change in that time that staff are required to be at work and exit work. And so from our perspective, it certainly is the least minimal to people's daily schedules as we provide a long-term solution to our challenges. So again, the rationale, least disruptive to the system, as I just showed you. The data supports it. While it wasn't a drastic difference, both staff and parent data supported option A. We think it's a long-term solution to address the labor market in the transportation industry. And again, there's that financial savings of moving to a 3-tier that we will see every year moving forward, that we're on a 3-tier system. Okay, seeing no questions. Appreciate the opportunity.
I don't think you're getting off that easy.
All right, fair enough.
Board, any questions of Dr. McMullen? Mr. Kuhn?
One concern I know many parents have addressed is band practice in the morning. There's a noise ordinance in Olathe, 7 o'clock. How will that affect their practices in the mornings if school starts at 7:40?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, with the noise ordinance being at 7 a.m., currently our high school marching bands can't fire up the band until 7 a.m. Certainly, you can be outside prior to 7 a.m., but just not fire up all the horns and drums, et cetera. So twofold. One, there could just be an adjustment to that schedule in terms of potentially there can be, I've had some band directors say, hey, we can go out and still march, we just don't play. We just practice marching, and then at 7 we start playing. There's others that have said, well, that's maybe doesn't work for my program, but we'll look at some other things. Another piece is on that city ordinance, and we've had some initial talks with the city, nothing finalized, but that noise ordinance is really in place for construction purposes, and we could certainly apply for a special use permit that might allow us to start a little bit earlier to adjust to the new schedule. So we've got some things we're working on currently to support that.
Okay. One other question. You said that all the other schools in the district, in Johnson County are currently on the 3-tier system?
Not all.
Blue Valley, Shawnee Mission.
Shawnee Mission is, Blue Valley is essentially on a 2-tier.
Okay.
Their middle and high are pretty close, like ours are now.
Okay, so Shawnee Mission is, do they have a driver shortage right now? Do you know?
I couldn't speak to that. I assume yes,
Okay.
but I don't know their data per se, but yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Board, any other questions?
I have one.
Dr. Yurkovich?
And I know that this has been looked at and discussed, but just for purposes of the presentation, that later elementary start time, I know the concerns that I've heard from elementary parents is childcare during that time. Can you talk a little bit about maybe what was discussed in the meetings or what other districts might be doing with that later start?
Absolutely. So that definitely in option A was frankly probably the biggest variable that kept coming up, and that is before school care for students, and with a later start time, what that looks like. And so we actually had Johnson County Parks and Rec, who is our before and after school care provider, come to our start and end time study group and meet with the elementary group answer questions, problem solve, share data. And so that's something that they are currently, in fact, I saw them walking out of the Ed Center yesterday or the day before, meeting and continuing to work on that. There's a lot of options that we'll continue to work on heavily over the next semester, and it's pretty much everything's on the table, whether we look at bringing in another provider if Johnson County Parks and Rec feels they can't meet the increased demand, or whether that is looking at offering some positions for staff to fill in and help out with that, whether it's classified staff or others on a voluntary basis. So we're looking at every option we can to help alleviate that and support parents there.
One thing that I may mention, that landing this schedule through board action is really a critical next step for us as we look at some of those things and actually defining what the solutions are, because all we're able to really say at this point is it may stay the same, it may be A, it may be B, and so that makes it a little challenging when we meet with JCPRD or anyone else that's impacted by any of these changes in order to say this is what we're doing and here's how the support looks. So we really believe that after we have a finite decision from our board in December, that will give us the opportunity to move forward in lots of different aspects of this, whether it be city ordinance, child care, whatever that may be, to say this is the schedule, now let's navigate around that and figure out how to best support our community that way.
Board, any other questions?
Just a comment. Dr. McMullen, I just want to thank you and team. I know that this has been an absolute beast and a really heavy lift, and I think that you guys have done a really great job, so thank you.
I do have one question. Will the three-tier system eliminate the interventions that were put in place for this school year?
Yes, so, with the three-tier, we'd be able to reinstate our pay ride services, look at lifting those safety variances and put those back in place. On the academy busing is one that we'll have to study further as we move to charging students for that. What we found by doing that is we eliminated a lot of ghost riders and parents who would sign up, but then their child would never ride the bus, but we'd still have to route it. And as students were applying for academies this year, we certainly, each academy facilitator and the building principals all worked with families that if there was a financial hardship, the student remained in the academy and was able to continue. And so something we'll continue to look at, whether or not we make that free again or whether we continue that as a pay ride, but help any family that would have a need. Because at the end of the day, part of this change is providing equity and access for all students to all programming. And so if we want to continue to allow students from the Olathe South attendance area to attend Olathe Northwest because they want to be in the engineering program, then we need to provide those offerings. But I will tell you, our 21st Century Academy numbers are up this year from where they were a year ago. And so that change, that intervention really didn't have an impact on student participation or enrollment.
Thank you. Mrs. Steele.
So along those lines, would this also repeal this leave time for kids in sports or other activities that they're having to leave at 1 o'clock for a 5 o'clock game? Is it going to help that? I'm kind of going back to what Dr. Watson said about the number one thing we all need to, as a community, come together, and that's for reducing chronic absenteeism and how that affects academics. And I know he said it doesn't, I'm not referring to trips and that sort of thing. He was referring to kind of those all-day absences not showing up. But I can't help but think it doesn't affect academics in some way. And luckily, we have those measures in place where we monitor academics for kids that want to play sports. But is it going to help that as well?
That's a great question. It will absolutely alleviate it. Will it eliminate it 100%? I can't stand here and promise that. But what I can tell you is it definitely, it's kind of like soccer is our greatest example there with their start times having a JV and a varsity game at 5 and 7. All 5 of our high schools know if you're going to Lawrence, you're leaving by 1:30. We do believe that in this 3-tier system, we will have drivers available to just run that trip and stay actually in Lawrence with the team, not drop them off, come back, and then go get them 3.5 hours later. Okay. So yeah, that is without question the goal.
Great. Great. Thank you for your work.
Dr. Yurkovich?
I have one more question, just as we re-examine the academy busing. I know this has also impacted the OATC busing only being provided in the morning because of the challenges. So will that also be re-examined?
Yeah, the piece of the three-tier that really helps out is it really takes much of the load that we've put on assisted transportation to fill those gaps, and will allow assisted to be able to run some of those shuttles that only have 2 to 5 kids that are going to OATC from a given high school. So yes, that piece is on the table as well.
Okay, thanks.
Board, any other questions?
Mr. Boyd, do you mind if I make a couple of comments?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. You never know. I want to thank Dr. McMullen for his work on this and our folks that participated in the committees. It was a massive undertaking. The truth is Jim probably could have spoke for 3 hours tonight and still not covered, all the ins and outs of everything that we're looking at. But one of the things I so appreciated that Jim and the others who were involved in this committee, parents, staff, our other administrators, really was the focus on our kids who had access to riding a bus before they don't at the current time. We have 3,500 students who are active bus riders last year who are not active bus riders this year. That's significant. We have schools like Indian Trail Middle School that used to have 5 buses last year. This year they have 0. And as we talk to our principals and staff, obviously, that care deeply about kids being at school, they're really worried as our weather turns this winter and kids are walking and riding bikes to school much more this year than they have, especially at schools where we don't have bus service anymore. That's going to be a reality that our schools are going to work through, certainly when the weather gets cold and what have you. But I really appreciate that so many in our community through this process have been able to focus on that larger picture, and that really is, Dr. McMullen and him asking folks to do that as they work through the process. The other thing too is, Jim mentioned assisted transportation. They've been such a good partner with us in trying to fill the gaps and the holes. I saw something today that their trips are with us over the last 5 years are up 166%. And that's a variety of reasons, but obviously, we're at a point where the capacity for us to continue what we were doing and trying to restore all those opportunities for our kids. This is really the only way we see that working for us moving forward. So I just wanted to say thanks to Jim and everyone that's engaged in this process. It's, as I said last month, it's not an easy process, and likely there will be people who say, yes, this works great for me, and people who say this absolutely doesn't work great for me. But I can tell you that our team is dedicated to trying to find, regardless of the schedule for next year, hopefully it'll be the recommendation, really try to find solutions to those challenges in terms of childcare, band practice, all those sorts of things. We have a team that's ready to do that work.
Thank you, sir.
And apologize, Dr. Yeager, I'd be remiss if I didn't thank Olivia Malone, who's our Director of Transportation, for all of her work throughout this process. I can't tell you how many hundreds of bell schedules I asked her for data on, and routing and everything, and she and her team and our communications department, Aaron and Tony and Becky and the whole crew, they've just been outstanding. So I promise you, Jim McMullen's not qualified enough to make these PowerPoints, so I've gotten a lot of help. So.
Well, thank you, sir. And if you're ready to move on and talk about open enrollment, we can go over to 404, and the floor is yours.
All right, well, what a treat for everyone. 2 presentations from Jim. So I am here tonight to talk about our open enrollment policy. Earlier this evening at 5 o'clock, we held a public meeting to allow input from the community to the board about our upcoming open enrollment policy. And I'll explain a little bit about the law and what we're doing in Olathe to adhere to that moving forward. So the new open enrollment law that went into place came out of House Bill 2567. It takes effect for the 24-25 school year. And it's important to know that this impacts all school districts in the state of Kansas. So every 1A school district up to every 6A school district is impacted by this open enrollment law. There's a timeline that is in the statute that requires all districts by January 1st of '24, here coming up, to adopt their own policy and procedures to accommodate the new open enrollment law. Includes a public hearing, which I mentioned we held earlier today at 5 o'clock. And then our board will need to take action at the December meeting on our board policy per the statute. So the annual timeline, some of this is we put into place internally, and then some of this is statutorily required, and I'll differentiate for you here. But beginning in the 24-25 school year, so starting essentially in the spring semester of 25, January 4th, our in-district transfer window opens. We will continue to give priority to our residents in terms of transfer needs for exceptional circumstances. That will be a 2-month window that'll go through the end of February. Then in March 1st, we'll open our second window, which will be our employee child transfer window. That allows our employees, both certified and classified, to bring their children to Olathe if they reside in another district. Then we get into the state required pieces of the timeline. By May 1st, our capacity must be determined, and I'll talk in a minute about that, how we will determine that. Then prior to June 1st, we have to post our capacity on the district website. And then from June 1 to June 30, which is frankly pretty late in the game, but it's the way it's written in the statute, the non-resident application window is open. That closes June 30th each year, and then as a district, we have from July 1 to July 15 to award those spots, if there is space available, to non-resident students who apply. So how do you determine capacity? Because there's a few different ways to look at that. One is functional capacity, and that's your square footage in a building, where we have many buildings based on enrollment gains and decreases in certain pockets of our community, where we may have more classrooms than we have classes. And so certainly we are going to focus on our pupil-teacher ratio, PTR, to determine our staffing, because at the end of the day, we can't add staff to accommodate out-of-district students enrolling. So we're going to have to determine capacity based off our current PTR. So this doesn't impact early childhood. The bill specifies K through 12. At elementary school, we'll certainly look by grade level, by building. And so an example might be our PTR, and HR, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think third grade, our PTR is 25-1, if I'm not mistaken. And so let's say we have 3 sections at a given elementary school, so that would be 75 seats in theory. And let's say we have 60 students enrolled. Well, that would then technically allow you 15 seats. Now, as a district, we will certainly protect and hold back spots as we have statistical data, historical data to show that we have a lot of movement, both internally, folks moving into the district, moving from one side of the district to the other, et cetera. And so we will have to determine our capacity to make sure that we're not going over our PTR and adding staff based on our numbers. Middle school will be configured the same way by grade level in PTR. And then high school is a little unique. It's tough because, frankly, students take, a student could be enrolled in one of 9 to 12 different math courses at a high school. And so we're going to use our ELA PTR, which is our language arts staffing, because that's the one subject in high school that every student takes all 4 years. So we'll determine our high school capacity based off of that. Then obviously your district capacity ends up being the sum of your building capacity. Some other items that are unique to this legislation, transportation for parents that apply to be a non-resident student in our district, or frankly any district. Transportation is not provided for gen ed students on transfer. One piece to note that students who receive special services are on a 504 in their current district and transfer into our district, if they currently have transportation written into their IEP, then we would be responsible to transport that child. certainly can present some challenges, but we'll certainly deal with those on a case-by-case basis. Other items in the policy, as I mentioned, we put in some protections for our residents, our patrons, with that early transfer window, and then our staff. And as I mentioned before, per the statute, June 1 to June 30 is the non-resident window. We'll have guidelines for acceptance in terms of students needing to be in good standing to not only be accepted, but then once admitted to remain on transfer. You'll see in the policy we have guidelines in place to ensure appropriate grades, discipline, and attendance. One piece of the bill that's unique, well, one of many, but is that once a student's admitted, you are admitting them into the Olathe Public Schools for the duration of their K-12 career. So if we were to approve a second grader at Forest View, then we would be approving that child to finish at Forest View on the Mission Trail onto Olathe West High School. And so certainly trying to forecast out 5 to 9 years on kids is challenging, but we're certainly working on that as we determine our capacity. The other piece, questions we've fielded from patrons regarding CASHA, and if I transfer in, is my kid eligible? CASHA has all those guidelines clearly spelled out in terms of what constitutes a physical move for a child to be eligible once they've started their high school career. So we'll continue to adhere to all CASHA guidelines. The policy itself is it's a 6-pager. It's long, but again, there's a lot of pieces to it. Chris Pittman, our staff counsel, and I have worked with KASB and other districts to ensure that policies are pretty consistent, and they are. We certainly have our Olathe piece to it, but you'll see on board docs, the policy is there as a future action item for your review. I won't take the time to read all 6 pages to you, but I will be happy to stand for any questions about the open enrollment policy.
Mr. Beveridge?
I just have a quick question. So we would potentially get students in the 24-25 year, but we would not be paid for those students by the state until the next year. Is that correct?
That's my understanding, yes. Okay. Is that right, Mr. Hutchison?
Or two.
Dr. Yurkovich.
I have a couple of questions. One, just in relation to how many move-ins we have after the school year starts, can you give us an idea of this year? And then can we include that in our consideration of capacity, just anticipating move-ins?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, yeah, on the first day of school this year, we had 28,542 students. And then on our September 20th count date, we had 28,787. So we increased 245 students from the first day of school to the September 20th count date. Certainly, I don't have the data in front of me of what we've captured since September 20th, but certainly that number's gone up. So, yeah, we will look at our historical data of where we start and where we hit mid-year and end of the year, and definitely use that data to help drive capacity and make sure we're not overextending ourselves.
And then my second question, you referenced a student with an IEP who's provided transportation, but we won't know that until after the lottery, correct? Because we can't ask if they're a special ed.
Yeah, that's 100% correct. So yeah, you can't ask questions regarding special services or other things on the application. So yeah, we would not be aware of that until after approval's been granted. So.
Board, any additional questions? I have a couple. Having just come off a presentation about busing and transportation and that challenge, do you feel comfortable pontificating on how this open enrollment policy could impact us from a transportation perspective?
Yeah, you know, with on the gen ed side, again, it's written into the legislation that we don't provide transportation for gen ed students. On the sped side, certainly could prevent some pretty big challenges. There's no doubt about it. We're in a bit of a position where we're going to have to roll with it and see how it plays out, because the law is what it is. But the reality is, hypothetically, a family from Ottawa, Kansas could apply to come to Olathe, and then we find out after approval in mid-July, that the child receives special services transportation to and from home to school, and we would have to look at accommodating that. So it's a big, probably the biggest challenge of this legislation.
And I would add too, not just a transportation challenge, the other challenge that could come along with that is staffing related to special education, which you're all aware of, we're very challenged by right now as well. And so again, we would have a hard time preparing for that until students were admitted into our district. We know they're here, they know that they received services, and then we're quickly either shuffling staff around or trying really hard to hire staff 6 weeks before school starts.
Thank you. And then the second question I had is, as we're looking at guidelines for acceptance, some of those guidelines are spelled out in state stat, right? But who determines quote unquote good standing? Is that something that we would do as a receiving school, or is it based on past performance?
Yeah, that's something we set in our policy. Yep, in terms of grades, attendance, and discipline. So the good news is we've got those pieces in place for our internal transfers already, so we will mirror those for our out-of-district transfers.
Thank you. Board, any additional questions? Mrs. Steele?
So my question is more about, this is state statute. We will be the ones to approve it next month or not. But the overseers of the policy you've drafted, and we've worked with other school districts in KASB, is there someone at the state that monitors this once this has been handed down and once we approve it? How does that look?
It's a great question. I frankly don't know the
So
answer
we're
to
just
that.
we're doing according to the bill that was passed,
what the legislation says, but
Okay.
in terms of who's monitoring that, I don't know.
Yeah.
I can assume the monitoring side is certainly going to be there on the capacity, to where if you have districts that claim they have zero capacity at every grade level at every
Right.
building, it's not going to add up. So I think there'll be some accountability on that end, but of course, do you have an answer to that?
Thank you.
Perhaps, sorry.
Thank you.
I think Dr. Mack just needed a break. He's got
Thanks.
Ms. Still, I just grabbed the statute as you were asking
Okay.
the question, because I knew it referenced a bit. And one thing it specifically requires is publication of this policy on our website, which in turn would get to the State Department of Education. Obviously would know that, but I can look into that further about if there's some filing procedure with them. But that's one thing that's specifically required after adopting this policy that's on our website, which we would do anyway, normally. So.
Okay, very good. I certainly see the integrity to be true to what the intent was with the bill in our policy. So I, appreciate that. Like you said, if we put 0 at every grade level, obviously that's not being forthcoming with the intent. So that's why I just wondered who oversees.
The other thing I would mention too, and Jim talked about this, but this will change, if approved by the board, it will change what we've done in terms of our own transfer process for our families that live in Olathe. We obviously will do a massive communication effort about that. But typically transfers have kind of rolled in all spring, all summer. When we looked at it, when we've worked through it in the past just as a district, but we will really communicate our efforts that in order to take best care of our Olathe families and our community, that window is pushed up exponentially, so we can get our local taxpayers, our local community members, where they should be before inviting others, if you will, from the outside. So that will be a challenge for us, just because it's a change in practice from where we've been since probably 1965 in our school district. So.
Board, any final questions? Well, thank you, sir.
Thank you. Take a seat.
All right, moving on to public comments. Mrs. Steele.
At each regular meeting, the Board of Education reserves limited time for individuals to address the board. We request that individual speakers limit their comments to 3 minutes. The clerk will monitor the time and notify the speaker when the 3-minute time limit has expired. Please direct your comments to the entire board. If a response is appropriate, the president will respond or refer to another individual. In an effort to respect privacy, we ask that speakers refrain from discussing personal complaints involving individual staff members or students. Those speaking are advised that public comments are videotape recorded for broadcast on the district's educational access channel and audio tape recorded as a matter of public record. Individuals addressing the board should come to the podium at the front of the room and state your name and address.
Thank you. Our first public speaker is Erica Sheets.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to address the Olathe School Board and the community here tonight. My name is Erica Sheets, and I'm here representing our local Moms for Liberty Johnson County, Kansas chapter, as well as supporting our friends at Gays Against Groomers in our joint challenge of 3 books in the Olathe school system. The titles of those books are Let's Talk About It, Genderqueer Memoir, and All Boys Aren't Blue. I'd like to thank Chief Academic Officer Dr. Reeves for updating us that internal reviews of all of these books are proceeding, and we are pleased to hear that. For those of you who are not aware of this, these books should be removed from Olathe schools as they do not meet the criteria of multiple Olathe policies. These books contain obscene sexual illustrations, obscene sexual nudity, sexual assault, sexual activity with a family member, vulgar language and profanity, including homophobic and racial slurs, as well as alcohol and drug abuse. Despite being placed in high school libraries, the reading complexity level, or Lexile scores, of all 3 books are at an elementary level. And in 2023 data, 58% of Olathe students are below the effective level 3. That represents an 11% decline since 2015. By the way, as Dr. Watson was speaking, I got on to ksreportcard.ksde.org, where you can find all the performance data for the district, the building, by year, by subject, and by level. And for Olathe in ELA, level 1 students were 13.29% in 2015. In 2023, it's up to 24.58% in level 1. For math, in 2015, it was 14.9% in level 1, and in 2023, it's up to 22.89%. So, thought you might want to know that. The reliance on the standards and lists and reviews provided by the ALA, or American Library Association, is a fundamental reason school librarians are placing and fighting to keep obscene books in our schools. The ALA director, Deborah Caldwell Stone, is on video stating, quote, "But ultimately what we found was, and the thing that needs to happen most is, sustained messaging that reframes this issue, that takes it away from the idea that these are sexually inappropriate for minors and promote them as diverse materials that are about inclusion." So in other words, they had to lie. The ALA has been fired from 5 states so
your time is up.
far. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Chris Barrett.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Chris Barrett, and I am the co-director of chapters with Gays Against Groomers. We're an LGBT organization that fights against the sexualization, indoctrination, and medicalization of children. I spoke here last month, and I felt the need to drive home a few extra points tonight. Books like All Boys Aren't Blue and Let's Talk About It are obviously inappropriate in their approach and are not suitable for a public school library. But a book like Genderqueer is not only inappropriate, it's also dangerous. Genderqueer pushes the homophobic notion of gender theory on kids. It makes them think that being the opposite gender from which they are born is a viable option as a kid, I can tell you that is not the case. So why do I call this book homophobic? Let me explain. A lot of kids experience gender dysphoria, which is a condition where a person feels their gender doesn't align with their biological sex. In plain terms, a boy may feel like he's actually a girl or vice versa. When this happens in childhood or adolescence, most kids will have their gender dysphoria resolved through cognitive behavioral therapy, psychoeducation therapy, or cognitive enhancement therapy. And when I say most kids will recover from this, I'm not talking about a slim majority. In fact, according to scientific studies, 82% of kids will grow out of these feelings. And out of that 82%, the vast majority are gay, lesbian, bisexual, or autistic. As a gay man, I did not like it when radicals on the far right tried to pray away the gay. And I certainly do not like it that radicals on the left are now trying to trans away the gay. That's why a book like this is inherently homophobic. It tells younger gay people that they need to be fixed, that there is something wrong with them. So if anyone here tonight thinks that a book like this is somehow helpful, I can assure you it is most certainly not. A young gay person may pick up this book and have a seed planted in their minds that they need to change themselves in order to be normal. This is completely unacceptable. And again, this is dangerous. Gender transition turns a person into a lifelong patient. Is this what you're trying to encourage gay and autistic kids to do? I certainly hope not. In the end, I have to question whether any librarian or other educator for that matter pushing to keep a book like this is even fit to be around kids. They obviously haven't looked very far into what is actually going on in the LGBT communities, and they are only listening to a few radicals within those communities to make their decisions. They aren't open to listening to gay voices like mine that are warning them that this isn't the way to go. That's a huge problem. In the end, let's protect the tomboys, protect the femboys, and as I said before, for God's sake, listen to parents.
Thank you. Meg Schimmel.
Good evening. My name is Meg Schimmels, and I'm here tonight to advocate for our district librarians, libraries, and the students' right to read. I have a master's in school librarianship and 30 years of teaching in school libraries, including Wichita, Topeka, and finally retiring after 5 years as an Olathe school librarian. I was an adjunct instructor in the Wichita State Library Certification Program and was also the Wichita District Library Instructional Coach. Around the country and in our community, there have been some contrary narratives and misinformation about books in our school libraries. First, what is the purpose of a school library? A good library and its materials are always evolving to support curriculum and student interests. In a nutshell, the school library is an essential part of our learning community. Qualified school librarians lead effective school libraries. Reading is the core of personal and academic competency. Intellectual freedom is every learner's right. And what is the role of the library media specialist? Think of librarians as the uber educators they are. They teach students how to learn. They help teachers drive student success. They work with every individual student in the school. They are essential partners for all teachers, providing print and digital materials that meet diverse needs and collaborating to deepen student learning. They develop a collection that is responsive to curriculum and student needs and interests. Librarians are required to take extensive coursework on appropriate material selection. They spend countless hours reading reviews. They engage with their students and teachers about curriculum requirements and personal interests. Challenges to library materials across the country and in this district are not new, but must be addressed with respect. parents absolutely have the right to guide their children's reading choices, but they absolutely do not have the right to decide for other parents and students. Students don't lose their First Amendment rights when they choose a library book, and only their parents should guide them in making that choice. When there's an objection to library materials, the process is to utilize the district reconsideration policy. A book should always be considered in its entirety, not just selected passages that are taken out of context. Learners deserve access to information on all sides of issues and interests. The primary function of public education is to teach students how to think for themselves. Reading a wide variety of texts develops critical thinking skills, discernment, and empathy. Not all students have access to resources outside their school. School is their place, the place where they deserve to learn and grow. Our district motto guides our learning community. Students prepared for their future. Prepared students are students who have been taught how to think critically. That's the goal of education, and a responsive, evolving library is a critical piece in achieving that goal. Let's respect the processes we have in place, and above all, let's trust and respect our students, because it's not our future,
Your time has
it's
expired.
their future. Thank you.
Thank you. Megan Bricks.
Good evening. As you all know, my name is Megan Bricks, and I'm an elementary music teacher here in the Olathe School District. Tonight I want to spend my time focusing on how educators within our school district partner with families to support students and their needs. Within each building, there are educators who are working past their contract times and during their plan time to send emails to guardians or make phone calls to families. Educators are reaching out to communicate how students are performing academically and asking questions about how they can best support each child when they are in their classroom in relation to their academics. Educators are also reaching out to communicate with families when a child's typical behavior has slightly changed. Educators are reaching out to partner with families to provide supports for students and ask questions if they need our support. I want to ensure that we recognize these educators and families for taking the time to partner with each other. They trust the process, and the process helps their students in the end. One leadership skill we teach our students is to synergize and work together. When we work together, there is a higher possibility for success. I want to then take this same thought and apply it overall to our school district. When we partner together, within our buildings, across our grade levels, across our content areas, across our feeder patterns, and across the entire school district, we are better able to support our students and work to prepare them for their future. I hope that the Board of Education will continue to partner with building staff, educators, education support professionals, as well as anyone who works within the school community to best support our students. Thank you so much for giving me all your time tonight to present. Thank you.
Thank you. Shelley Allenbrand.
Shirley Allenbrand, Olathe, Kansas. President Boyd and honorable board members, thank you for allowing me to be here tonight. First of all, I am an Olathe graduate along with my siblings and also my kids, so I'm very proud to be here, and I want to thank you for your service and continued high standard. I also wear a hat of a Johnson County Commissioner and have been out visiting city councils and also school boards. So what I'm hearing tonight from some of the things that you brought up, I'm hearing at other board meetings as well. But one of the things I've been working on is workforce and also housing needs for workforce housing needs. And so I've been working on in the community to do that. And I want to thank Dr. Yeager, and I'm going to reach out to him more because we have the New Century Airport with businesses there. We have Panasonic that's now being built, and there's also industrial within my district. So if you look at the districting, in 2025, we're going to have to do a redistricting. You see all the growth. And so it's a perfect opportunity to work on those things within that district. But you also look at the hourly pay scale that's coming up. So you've got Hostess, other companies that are paying right now $25 an hour with a $1,000 sign-in bonus. No high school education, but also certifications are needed for that. And then you've got Panasonic coming in and some other companies that are now on the verge of opening in the next 2025, 2026, $31 an hour plus sign-on bonuses. And we need to work harder, and I'm going to reach out to you, Dr. Yeager, because you've done a great job. I was at an event, and I was talking about the thousands of employees that will be coming from Japan and saying, you know, we need to find somebody who speaks Japanese, and we've been teaching it in the Olathe schools for over 2 years. So I'm going to be reaching out to Dr. Yeager to see if we can't provide some more in our middle schools and high schools to promote certifications, which anybody that lives in Olathe or attends the schools need to be part of the foundation. So I just want to thank you. I'm proud to be here, and I thank you for your service, so don't give up. Thank you.
Thank you. Emmett Barrios.
Hello, my name is Emma Barrios. I have autism. I attend PLC and I am working into the SCR program at Summit Trail. Tonight, I want to talk about my experiences of bullying and seclusion. I've been in multiple bullying situations since kindergarten. Often, these result in my parents being told he's likely misunderstanding. Other times, I am secluded from my peers even though I did nothing wrong. And sometimes I am suspended, but informally, of course. Here are some examples of seclusion I experienced during middle school. Instead of conflict resolution with my peers, I was offered alternative passing periods. Instead of a peer being held accountable for an assault on me, which was on school cameras, I was secluded. I had to stay in the office every morning for the following week. Instead of providing my peers and I guidance through negative social interactions occurring during lunch, I now in my SCR classroom. When our district fails to address bullying of SPED students, they are putting a bigger target on our backs. When our district secludes SPED students instead of taking opportunities to address situations process with us and guide all students involved, they make us feel like we don't matter. I want to leave something in your heart tonight. At the young age of 11, I hated school. It wasn't for like the typical reasons like homework or having to wake up early. I developed depression and PTSD due to bullying, seclusion, and lack of appropriate action. I experienced suicide ideation due to the bullying, seclusion, and lack of appropriate action. We need to do better. Thank you.
Thank you. Elaine Gephardt.
Good evening. My name's Elaine, and I am the Kansas chapter lead for Gays Against Groomers. My co-director already explained what Gays Against Groomers is. I'm not going to do it again. We are seeing books that are not appropriate for schools in schools. We already named them. They are genderqueer, boys aren't blue, and there's another one. Can't remember it off the top of my head. these are a misappropriation to try and push inclusion on a misunderstanding of what gay culture is. Drugs, alcohol, sexual assault, all kinds of other mental health issues that people think push gay people to be gay are misconceptions. We are gay. We're just gay. It happens. We weren't taught these things in school. We didn't have these books. We didn't have any of these resources that these school districts, these libraries, these teachers, and the NEA is trying to push onto everyone else. We didn't grow up learning these things. I didn't grow up learning these things, and I'm relatively young. I'm still a bisexual woman. I don't know any person in the gay community who's actually taught this and still turned out to be a lesbian, gay, or bisexual woman. Children were not transing 10 years ago, 15 years ago. They were not transing. They were transing as adults, which is perfectly fine. Putting this information out there, trying to show children who are autistic, who are outcasts, who are questioning their sexual orientation, and telling them that if they'd feel better if you were a straight girl instead of a gay boy, is harmful. It causes suicide ideations in these children already who are already having a hard enough time trying to deal with their own lives. And you want to sit here and think that it's okay and tell everyone these books are perfectly fine. No, it's not. And you are responsible for any outcome these children have as adults when they are made medical patients for life. By keeping these books in these schools, by trying to be inclusive of all of these ideologies, these gender ideologies that are portrayed in these books these school districts have, every single one of you are responsible for the outcomes of these children. They don't need this. They need help. They need inclusion to say, you're perfectly fine the way you are. Stop transing kids.
Patty Lanter. Carrie Van Buskirk.
Good evening, esteemed board members. Carrie Van Buskirk, proud parent of Olathe students with disabilities. Thank you for hearing my germane comments this evening. I wanted to start this evening with a quote from a favorite author of mine. Since books seem to be a common theme this evening, this might be relevant. James Baldwin, a favorite African-American urban gay rights poet of mine, penned, "Not everything that is faced can be changed, but nothing can be changed until it is faced." What I'm asking for you to face this evening, and perhaps change, is the use of seclusion. Please note that the use of seclusion can cause a trauma response of school avoidance, also referred to as chronic absenteeism, a concern expressed by our commissioner this evening. As you are aware, just recently, in July, the Kansas legislature passed a bill redefining seclusion and provides explicit guidelines regarding our expected response and documentation. If we haven't already completed this onboarding, I ask that we do so as soon as possible. Seclusion means placement of a student in a location where the student is placed in an enclosed area by school personnel. The student is purposely isolated from adults and peers, and the student is prevented from leaving, or the student reasonably believes that they are prevented from leaving the enclosed area. Please also be advised that the Kansas Department of Education does not promote the use of seclusion. KSDE recommends focus on prevention, stresses that seclusion is not to be part of an MTSS system or any student behavior plan. It is only to be used in an emergency. KSDE views seclusion as a reactive strategy that does not decrease the likelihood of the behavior reoccurring. So I encourage our board to request a view of these areas that are used for that purpose. We don't call them seclusion rooms. I think it's because we honestly don't like using them. But if we're going to use them, we need to call them what they are, not the room, a mascot room, a celestial being room, calm room, but a seclusion room. And I ask that we really, really take a hard look at the data and reduce its use completely, if possible. I ask that you ensure timely reporting. I ask that we look for patterns of use in specific buildings and work to reduce and cease its practice. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Patty Lanter. That concludes our public comments this evening. Moving on to action and consent. Board, any questions on any of the action and consent items on our agenda? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve items 6.01 through 6.18 as presented.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Wycliffe and a second by Mr. Kuhn.
Mr. Kuhn,
Yes.
Mr. Connell, Mr. Connell,
Yes.
Dr. Yurkovich,
Yes.
Mrs. Steele,
Yes.
Mr. Wycliffe,
Yes.
Mr. Boyd,
Yes.
Mr. Beveridge.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0. Moving on to action bids, contracts, and agreements. Board, any questions on 8.01 through 8.07? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve 8.01 through 8.07 as presented.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Beveridge and a second by Mr. Wycliffe.
Mr. Wycliffe,
Yes.
Mr. Boyd,
Yes.
Mr. Beveridge.
Yes.
Mr. Kuhn,
Yes.
Mr. Connell,
Yes.
Dr. Yurkovich,
Yes.
Mrs. Steele,
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0. All right, board, there's, looks like 27 items on future action for us to look through and read through. There's a couple information written reports. Board members, any topics for discussion? Mr. Connell, do you have any topics for discussion, sir?
I will pass this evening. Thank you for asking.
Thank you. Board,
Mr. Boyd?
Mr. Wycliffe.
I was going to do this in December, but I thought, I'm thinking about it, so we might as well just go ahead. I was thinking about the choices that we make, and life is about choices. And right now I'm staring at some fantastic staff that have to make really difficult choices and decisions and doing an excellent job at it, and I thank you for that. In my time here, I've tried to choose to be a good role model, to support students and staff, to listen, to understand, and not to answer, to represent the district in a positive light in public, and always be a good steward, to represent my family in a positive light. Shout out Team Wycliffe. I try to take the high road. I try to comport myself with as much class as I'm able. And I only choose for myself, right? And just hope that I get it mostly right, because none of us get it right all the time. Next month is my last meeting. That'll make some people very happy, and I'm good with that. I'm fine with that. My hope is that all of you good, talented people that are having to make big decisions, and tough choices are here to do that after I'm gone. Not that it would be me, but I just hope that you're here to continue to guide this district the way you have. That's what I've got.
Thank you, sir. Board, any other comments? Mr. Beveridge?
No.
Oh, I saw you grabbing the mic and pulling it down.
I could ask Mr. Wycliffe if he's planning on skipping the next meeting. But I did not have any comments.
That is TBD. I reserve the right.
All right. Dr. Yeager, the floor is yours, sir.
All right, thank you. I'm going to share quite a bit of information tonight. So I may have a quiz at the end because I'm going to give you lots of facts and figures tonight. So, one of the things that we continue to focus on, and this has come up in a variety of ways tonight, is our continued staffing challenges, primarily in the area of classified staff. I said last month, and it's true, that staffing and special education seem to be the two topics that all superintendents have in common right now when we get together and look at the things that we are trying really hard to do our best with. But I wanted to spend a little bit of time tonight just talking about the things that our HR department has done in the last several months to try to bolster our efforts in this area. And Lachelle's smiling. She's great. She's ready for this. So, but one of the things that we've always done in our district is hold job fairs, at least for the last number of years. School districts used to be a place where you held a job fair and everybody just came and it all worked out great. So we continue to do that. Our team does a fantastic job of always picking up some employees in that. But the other thing that we've done, and especially in the classified realm, is really working to go out into our community and try to recruit and hire classified staff members. This year alone, we've been to the Olathe Salvation Army job fairs that they host. As you know, Yellow Freight closed in our area. Johnson County Community College held a job fair for staff that had worked there. Our team was there recruiting people. La Mega KC job fairs hosted at the Johnson County Museum. That's a job fair that happens frequently, and our teams have participated in that. The Patrice Rice Community Center job fair in Kansas City, and also job fairs at Indian Creek Library here in Olathe. We've also really notched up our advertising efforts, if you will, as a school system. We've had multiple radio ad campaigns and some live radio interviews. For you radio fans out there, we've been on 104.3, 102.1, 94.1, and 93.3. A little country, a little rock, a little pop, all those things included there. So very nicely rounded group of radio stations. Social media blasts all over the place, conducted throughout the year, every single chance that we get. We post vacancies on outside employment websites, ones that we've not used before. If you followed a district box truck around the district, you have seen that it says, "Come join our team" on the back of the box truck with a QR code to do that. Now hiring yard signs, all of our district newsletters, certainly a focus on folks that we'd like to have in our district. Here in the coming weeks, you're going to see a billboard ad campaign across Kansas City, encouraging people to come and work in the Olathe Public Schools, and also a video to advertise at district events, the things that we've done. I say that to say that there are things on here that our district and school districts have never had to do before, but I'm really proud of our team for working so hard to come up with new and innovative ideas to do that. Also tonight on the HR report, you hired some people who are early hires for next school year. So we have not only early hires, we now have early hires that we're working to get the very best and the brightest as we can in our district. We're also working with an outside employment agency to assist with our SPED staff hiring right now, trying to fill some of our gaps that exist within our system. We've also started offering part-time shifts, if you will, where folks can come in and work for 4 hours. That doesn't work typically great historically in schools, but we're in a place where we're willing to try about anything to get the staff that we need to do a great job for our students. And we're continuing to look at job shares and what that looks like when two people share the same job. So I just want to be clear that our team is working day in and day out, trying to do everything they can to combat the national labor market situation. It's certainly not unique to Kansas. It's not unique to Olathe, but there are things our team is doing that I've not seen other people do, and I think it's just worth mentioning that tonight. The other thing that I would say is Lachelle and her team and all of our team, we're open to ideas. We constantly get, why aren't you doing more? Why aren't you doing more? And I just want to assure you we're doing everything that we can think of, but by no means does that mean we have all the answers. If there's someone in our community, on our board, whatever the case may be, that has some other ideas, we're in for that. I mean, we're willing to take a look at anything because we do know that it is so important for us. The next thing I want to talk about is our enrollment a little bit. Someone tonight talked about our enrollment. Was that Dr. McMullen? It had to be. He was the only person that presented tonight after Dr. Watson. So I just wanted to share some statistics about our enrollment, and you will find these interesting. You know, there's a little bit of a narrative that kids are leaving our school district in droves and going somewhere else, and I'm going to tell you that's simply not the case. And so I have some data about our district numbers this year that I'd like to share with you. This is the part I'm going to have you have a test for you. But we're down at about 170 students this school year. We expected that, but we are down about 170. Our district had its largest senior class ever last year with 2,400 students. So in the history of our district, last year's senior class was the largest we ever had. The incoming 2023 kindergarten class is 560 students smaller than last year's graduating class. This is the largest deficit in the history of our district as well. It's not surprising if you look at birth rates and our zip codes and in Johnson County, this mirrors what we're seeing across our county. The interesting thing, and this is the part that I'll test you on later, in comparing last year's kindergarten through 11th grade students versus this year's first grade through 12th grade students. So it's essentially the same kids. They just moved ahead one grade, if that makes sense. We're up 129 more students. So the students that were here last year, still here this year, that group has grown 129 more students. Some other interesting thing about our students in Olathe. The number of students participating in the free and reduced lunch program this year is at 31%. This is the highest in our district's history. 20 years ago, the percent of students participating in the free and reduced lunch program was 13%. I want to talk about changes in a school district. The number of students needing special education services, excluding gifted or speech and language, has increased to 12.15% of the student body. In 2012, that percent was 8.7% of the student body. The percent of students whose native language is English is 80% in 2023, meaning 20% of our students, their native language is not English. In 2012, the percent of our students whose native language was English was 91%, or 9% of our students that didn't speak English as their primary language. The other thing that's interesting, in the 2010 census in our area, 87% of the students who could have attended the Olathe Public School District attended the Olathe Public School District. In the 2020 census, which is the most recent, 89% of the students who could attend the district did attend the district. And so I asked Chris Graup, who studies all of our numbers backwards and forwards, I said, give me some interesting facts and figures about our student data. This is just a snapshot of who our students are this year. So many things speak to me about that data and so many of the opportunities that we have, but also so many of the things that just make our district really great. So I will quiz you on that next month during the superintendent's comments. I did want to mention a couple of other things. Principal Appreciation Month was October. You've probably seen our social media posts about that. I have to tell you that we have the best principals in the business in Olathe. They work hard. They care so deeply about their students and their staff. I had my principal advisory group in just this week, and I can tell you that, there are no better advocates and people who care so deeply about doing what's best for their staff and their students and really advocating whatever it takes to meet the individual needs of our kids. And so I just want to thank our principals for the incredible work that they do each and every day and each and every year. Also, that this is an important time of the year as fall sports come to an end. I would just like to congratulate our teams that are still playing. We have many of them, a list that's too long to go through tonight, but you will see them all, I'm sure, right in front of you in the coming months. Mr. Beveridge and Mr. Wycliffe, you're welcome to come back for any of those celebrations over the next few months if you'd like and enjoy that. So we have that happening. This is also the time where we have our fall musicals in our high schools, and so many kids doing incredible things to demonstrate their talents across our system each and every day. So just kudos to all of our student athletes, all of our students that are involved in the arts and really taking advantage of those things that they have at their disposal here in Olathe. That's my comments tonight.
Thank you, sir. And we have 2 executive sessions. The first one, how much time do you need for that one?
20 minutes, please.
20 minutes.
I move to discuss matters relating to actions adversely or favorably affecting a person as a student, and that the board return to the regular meeting at 8:20 p.m. in this room.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Beveridge and a second by Mr. Kuhn.
Mrs. Steele,
Yes.
Mr. Wycliffe,
Yes.
Mr. Boyd,
Yes.
Mr. Beveridge,
Yes.
Mr. Kuhn,
Yes.
Mr. Connell,
Yes.
Dr. Yurkovich,
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
Okay. So whoever's going to make the motion and second, making the motion, could you come and read it off my screen? I apologize for not having it. No.
I move that the board adopt the decision and findings of fact regarding a complaint filed under Board Policy GAAF concerning student 2023-1A.
Second.
We have a motion by Mrs. Steele and a second by Mr. Wycliffe.
Mr. Boyd?
Yes.
Mr. Beveridge?
Yes.
Mr. Kuhn?
Yes.
Mr. Connell? Mr. Connell? I'll come back.
Okay, he's not going to vote.
Okay, Dr. Yurkovich?
Yes.
Mrs. Steele?
Yes.
Mr. Wycliffe?
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0. Moving on to agenda item 15.01.
Sorry, we're ready to be done already. I move that the board go into executive session for the purpose of consultation with an attorney for the body or agency which would be deemed privileged in attorney-client relationship, and the board return to the regular meeting.
Just trying to think so we don't have to come back out. Let's go 35 minutes.
At 9:05. Is that right?
Close enough.
Okay.
Second.
We have a motion by Mrs. Steele and a second by Mr. Wycliffe.
Mr. Connell? Mr. Connell? Dr. Yurkovich?
Yes.
Mrs. Steele?
Yes.
Mr. Wycliffe?
Yes.
Mr. Boyd?
Yes.
Mr. Beveridge?
Yes.
Mr. Kuhn?
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0.
It's been real.
Thank you, Mr. Presidente.
We're adjourned.